All right, let's just jump right in. We all have this amazing ability to hold and juggle thoughts in our heads, right? But how does it actually work? Well, today we're going to look at a really powerful new way to understand our own working memory. We're moving past the simple ideas and getting into the real nuts and bolts. And it's all based on the fascinating work of a scientist named Klaus Oberauer.
Just think about this for a second. Say you have to run an errand on the way home. What do? You pull up a mental map of your normal route, and then you start playing with it, right? You add a detour, you picture a new street, maybe you weigh which way is faster to avoid that awful traffic. That whole process, building, holding, and changing a plan entirely in your head, yep, that's your working memory live in action.
So, here's the key thing to get. Working memory is not some dusty old storage closet for facts you memorized. Nope. It is an active, dynamic mental workbench. It's the space where you're building new ideas, solving problems, and basically constructing the thoughts that guide what you're going to do next from one moment to the next.
Okay, so if it's a workbench, how are our thoughts actually put together on it? I mean, how do we keep all the different pieces of an idea from just turning into a jumbled mess?
The really big idea here is something called binding. See, your working memory doesn't just hold a random pile of stuff. It holds things in a very specific structure. And it does that by creating a link between the what, the content of the thought, like a word or a number, and the where, its context, like its specific place in a list.
Let's break that down with a phone number. When you try to remember one, first, you've got the numbers themselves. That's the content. Easy enough. Then, your brain gives each number a position. It's the first number, the second, the third, and so on. That's the context. And the real magic? It happens in step 3, where this strong link, this binding, gets formed between each number and its exact spot in line. And this quote from Oberauer's work really just nails it. It gets right to the heart of the matter. It's not just about remembering the items. It's about remembering the items in their place. This whole content-context binding thing, well, it's the fundamental glue that holds our structured thoughts together.
So this brings us to the million-dollar question, the one that has fascinated researchers for decades. If this mental workbench is so great, why can't we just hold an infinite number of things on it? Why is it so, frustratingly limited?
For a really long time, the go-to metaphor was that working memory had a certain number of slots. Maybe you had 4, maybe the famous 7, but once they were full, that was it. Game over. You couldn't add anything else. But is that really what's happening in there?
Well, according to this theory, that whole fixed slots idea is just wrong. The real bottleneck, the true limit on what we can hold in our minds, isn't a lack of space. It's interference. I love this comparison because it makes it so clear. The old idea is like an ice cube tray. It's rigid. Once the slots are full, you're done. But Oberauer's idea is way more dynamic. Imagine each thing you're holding in your mind is like a ripple in a pond. 1 or 2 ripples, totally clear, totally distinct. But as you add more and more, what happens? They start to overlap. They interfere with each other, and suddenly it's really hard to tell one from another.
Exactly. So your memory doesn't just suddenly hit a wall and shut off. Instead, the quality just kind of degrades. As you keep adding more items to your mental workbench, their signals get jumbled and distorted. They start to get confused with each other. And that's what leads to mistakes, to forgetting, and to that feeling that your brain is just completely full.
But wait, there's another layer to this whole thing. Because even on a super crowded workbench, not everything is treated equally. There's actually a special VIP section for the task at hand.
So while you might be holding several different things in your working memory all at once, they're definitely not all in focus. There's a clear hierarchy going on.
This model says that inside that bigger workbench, there's this super exclusive focus of attention that can only hold one single item at a time. It's the thing you are currently thinking about.
So think of it like a mental spotlight, and it doesn't just pick an item, it enhances it. Let's say you're doing mental math, like adding 17 and 28. Okay, both numbers are on your workbench, but for a split second, that spotlight is only on 7 plus 8. And that part of the problem becomes incredibly sharp, super clear. The moment you solve it and get 15, the spotlight shifts, bringing the next part of the problem into focus. It's the one thing you are truly working with in your working memory.
Okay, so we've covered putting things on the workbench and focusing on them. But what about taking them off? I mean, how do we keep the workspace from getting totally cluttered with old, useless thoughts?
And this is absolutely critical. Just imagine if old information just hung around forever.
It would constantly interfere with new thoughts, and it would cause endless mistakes and confusion. Like when you're saying a phone number out loud, you have to mentally check off each digit after you say it so you don't repeat it, right?
The mechanism for this is called response suppression. And the most important word here is active. We don't just passively let thoughts fade away into the mist. Our brain is actually putting in the work to remove information from the workbench once its job is done.
And this is so cool. The brain doesn't just delete the item. It actively breaks the connection. It unlinks the content from its context. And scientists have a pretty amazing name for this process of purposeful unbinding: Hebbian anti-learning. It's basically the mental equivalent of wiping the whiteboard clean so you're ready for the next thing.
So let's just zoom out for a second and look at what we've built here. We've gone from a simple little metaphor about a workbench to a whole set of concrete interlocking mechanisms. What we have now is basically a blueprint for how a part of our mind actually works.
So here are the 4 core ideas, the big takeaways. First up, we have binding. That's linking what a thought is to where it belongs. Then there's interference. That's the real reason our capacity is limited, not some fixed number of slots. Then we've got the focus of attention, that special spotlight for just one high-precision thought. And finally, removal, the active process of cleaning up our mental workbench.
And this is why this theory is so incredibly powerful. It isn't just a nice story. Each of these mechanisms, binding, interference, focus, removal, they can all be described with math. They become the building blocks for actual computational models that can make precise, testable predictions about how we think. It's a huge deal.
And that brings us right back to the beginning. The whole point of this incredibly intricate system, just as Oprah Auer says here, is to create this mental medium, this workbench where we can build and shape the ideas that let us navigate our world in new and really flexible ways.
So, I'll leave you with a final kind of provocative thought. If the very fabric of our conscious thinking, our plans, our ideas, our moment-to-moment awareness, if it can all be broken down into these concrete, almost mechanical processes of binding, interfering, and unlinking, well, what does that imply about the nature of consciousness itself? What does that mean for the ghost in the machine?